Tonight, we travel to ancient China, to one of the oldest continuous civilizations in human history, a world of river valleys and silk roads, of emperors and philosophers, of walls built across mountains and canals dug across plains, of a culture so deep and so enduring that its roots reach back more than 4,000 years and its influence stretches across the entire world today. If this kind of slow journey through history helps you rest and learn, consider subscribing so you never miss an episode, and a like helps more people find this channel. Now settle in and let us begin. We begin with the land, a vast land, one of the largest territories of any civilization in the ancient world, stretching from the cold steppes of the north to the tropical forests of the south, from the high plateau of Tibet in the west to the Pacific coast in the east. A land of enormous variety, of different climates, different landscapes, different peoples. But at the heart of the Chinese story are two rivers, the Yellow River in the north, called Huang He in Chinese, named for the yellow silt it carries, silt from the Lus Plateau to the west, fine, powdery soil deposited by wind over millions of years. The Yellow River carries this silt eastward and deposits it on the Great Plain below, creating some of the most fertile agricultural land in the world. The Yangtze River to the south, called Changjiang, the Long River, the longest river in Asia, flowing from the Tibetan Plateau eastward to the sea, through gorges and valleys and broad plains. The Yangtze Basin is warmer and wetter, a different kind of agriculture, rice rather than millet, a different landscape, a different rhythm of life. These two river systems, the Yellow River in the north, the Yangtze in the south, are the axis around which Chinese civilization develops. As the Nile is to Egypt, so these rivers are to China, the source of water, a fertile soil, of the agricultural surplus that makes everything else possible. The Yellow River floods. It has always flooded, sometimes catastrophically. The river carries so much silt that its bed rises over time. The river becomes elevated above the surrounding plain, held in by levees, which must be constantly maintained. When the levees fail, the river can change course entirely, flooding vast areas, destroying villages and crops, killing thousands. The management of the Yellow River is one of the central challenges of Chinese civilization. From the earliest times to the present, the earliest Chinese people develop along these rivers. Small farming communities, growing millet in the north, in the Yellow River Basin, using stone tools, making pottery, keeping pigs and dogs. The Yangshao culture, named after the site where it was first identified, flourishes in the Yellow River Valley, from roughly 5000 to 3000 before the Common Era. Their pottery is distinctive, decorated with painted geometric patterns, and images of fish and human faces, red and black designs on a buff background. Some of the most beautiful pottery of the prehistoric world. The Longshan culture, which follows, develops an even finer pottery, eggshell-thin black ware, made on a fast wheel, so thin and evenly shaped that it is difficult to believe it is made by hand, and by foot, and without modern tools. Writing appears. The earliest known Chinese writing dates to the late 2nd millennium before the Common Era. Oracle bones, the shoulder blades of oxen, and the shells of turtles, used for divination. Questions are carved into the bone or shell. The bone is heated until it cracks. The cracks are red, as the answer from the ancestors, or from the spirits. Then the question, and sometimes the answer, and sometimes the outcome, are inscribed on the bone. As a record, these oracle bones, found in large quantities near the city of Anyang, in what is now Hunan province, are the earliest written records of Chinese civilization. They record the concerns of the kings of the Shang dynasty, weather and harvests, military campaigns, the health of the king, royal births and deaths, ritual sacrifices. The Shang dynasty, traditionally dated from approximately 1600 to 1046 before the Common Era, is the first Chinese dynasty confirmed by archaeological evidence. Earlier dynasties, the Xia, are mentioned in later texts, but their historical reality is debated among scholars. The Shang is real. Its remains have been found. Its writing has been deciphered. The cities have been excavated. Shang civilization is centered on walled cities. The capital moves several times over the dynasty's history. The last and most important capital, near modern Anyang, is called Yin by later Chinese. It has palaces, temples, workshops, cemeteries. The royal tombs of the Shang are remarkable. Large pit graves, cut deep into the earth. The king is buried with an enormous quantity of grave goods, bronze vessels, jade objects, weapons, chariots, horses, and people. Servants and soldiers are killed and buried with the king, to serve him in the afterlife. The scale of these sacrifices, documented in the tombs, speaks to the absolute power the Shang kings claimed over their subjects. Bronze, the defining material of the Shang period, and the basis of the term Bronze Age, which applies to China as to the rest of the ancient world. Shang bronzes are extraordinary objects, cast in clay molds, using a piece mold technique, different from the lost wax method used elsewhere. The molds are assembled around a clay core. Molten bronze is poured in. When the metal cools, the molds are broken away, and the vessel emerges. The vessels are ritual objects, used in ceremonies to honor the ancestors. Food and wine are placed in them, offered to the spirits of the dead, who are believed to influence the fortunes of the living. The vessels are decorated with faces, with dragons, with geometric patterns, with animals. The decoration is dense, covering every surface. The faces, called taotai, are among the most distinctive images in Chinese art. 2 eyes, a nose perhaps, but no lower jaw visible, as if the face is emerging from or merging into the surface of the vessel. Shang bronze work represents one of the peaks of ancient craftsmanship. The vessels in museums around the world. The Metropolitan Museum in New York, the Palace Museum in Beijing, the British Museum in London, still carry the patina of 3,000 years, still show the precision of the casting, still communicate something of the ritual world they were made for. The Zhou dynasty, in 1046 before the Common Era. The Shang dynasty falls to a people from the west, the Zhou, who defeat the last Shang king and establish their own dynasty. The Zhou rule for an extraordinarily long time, roughly 1046 to 256 before the Common Era. Nearly 800 years, the longest dynasty in Chinese history, though its nature changes dramatically over those centuries. The Zhou justify their overthrow of the Shang, with a concept that will shape Chinese political thought for millennia. The mandate of heaven, Tianming, the idea that heaven, a moral force in the Chinese understanding, not a personal god, but a kind of cosmic moral order, grants the right to rule to a virtuous ruler, and withdraws it from a corrupt one. When a ruler becomes corrupt, or cruel, or incompetent, heaven withdraws its mandate and gives it to someone more worthy. This concept is used by every subsequent dynasty to justify its rise to power. The dynasty that overthrows the previous one claims that heaven has transferred its mandate, that the old ruler has lost the right to rule, that the new dynasty is legitimate because heaven sanctions it. The mandate of heaven becomes one of the most enduring political concepts in Chinese history. The early Zhou period is sometimes called the Western Zhou because the capital is in the west, in the Wei River Valley, near modern Xi'an. In 771 before the Common Era, the Western Zhou capital is attacked by peoples from the north and northwest, called the Rong. The Zhou king is killed. The court flees eastward to a new capital, near modern Laozi. The Eastern Zhou period, 771 to 256, is divided by historians into two phases. The Spring and Autumn period, 722 to 481, named after the Spring and Autumn Annals, a historical chronicle from the state of Lu, traditionally associated with Confucius, and the Warring States period, 481 to 221, when the major states fight for dominance. During the Eastern Zhou, the power of the Zhou king weakens. The regional lords, the vassal states, become more independent, more powerful, more willing to act without reference to the nominal sovereign. The Zhou king retains ceremonial importance as a symbol of cultural and religious authority, but political and military power lies with the feudal lords of the various states. The Spring and Autumn period, a time of shifting alliances, of interstate diplomacy, of the gradual consolidation of power among the stronger states. The many small states of the early Zhou are absorbed, one by one, into fewer and larger units. This is also one of the most intellectually remarkable periods in Chinese history. The 100 schools of thought, a flowering of philosophy that produces ideas, still discussed, still practiced, still shaping the world. Confucius, Confucius, born in 551 before the Common Era, in the state of Lu, in what is now Shandong province. He is one of the most influential thinkers in human history. His ideas about ethics, about government, about social relationships, about education, shape Chinese civilization for 2.5 millennia, and influence the wider world profoundly. Confucius is not primarily a religious figure. He is a teacher and a thinker about ethics and governance. He believes that social harmony and good government depend on the proper ordering of human relationships and on the cultivation of virtue in individuals. The 5 key relationships in Confucian thought: ruler and subject, father and son, husband and wife, elder brother and younger brother, friend and friend. Each relationship has its proper form, its proper obligations. On both sides, the ruler owes benevolence, the subject owes loyalty, the father owes care, the son owes filial piety, the respect and love owed to parents. Filial piety, Shao, is one of the central virtues in Confucian ethics, the love and respect of children for their parents, and by extension, respect for elders, for tradition, for the wisdom of the past. This virtue shapes Chinese family life and social structure for centuries. Confucius believes that if people in positions of power cultivate virtue, model correct behavior, then those below them will follow. Government by moral example, rather than simply by law and force. The ruler who is virtuous attracts virtuous subordinates and creates a harmonious society. He is not always successful in his own lifetime. He spends years traveling between states, offering his services as an advisor to various rulers, hoping to find one willing to implement his ideas. He is not given the opportunity he hopes for. He returns to Lu. He teaches. He has many students. He dies in 479, perhaps not believing his ideas will have much impact. They have more impact than those of almost any other person in history. The Analects, Luinyu, a collection of Confucius's sayings and conversations, compiled by his students after his death. It is one of the most widely read books in history. In China, every educated person knows it, quotes from it, is tested on it in the imperial examinations. For over 1,000 years, Laozi and Taoism, another great tradition of Chinese thought. Its origins are attributed to a figure named Laozi, Old Master, whose historical existence is uncertain. But the text attributed to him, the Tao Te Ching, the classic of the way and virtue, is real and profound. The Tao, the way, is a concept difficult to translate or to define. Laozi says it explicitly. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The Tao is the underlying principle of the universe, the natural order, the way things naturally tend to go, when not interfered with. Taoism values naturalness, spontaneity, simplicity, non-action, wu-wei, not doing nothing, but acting in accordance with the natural flow, not forcing, not striving, not imposing. Taoism and Confucianism are not opposites. Though they emphasize different things, they coexist, complement each other. In the Chinese intellectual tradition, a person might practice Confucian ethics in their public life and turn to Taoist ideas for personal cultivation and spiritual renewal. Mozi and Moism, another school, founded by Mod, or Mozi, around 470 to 391 before the Common Era. He emphasizes universal love, Jianai, love for all people equally, without the distinctions of family and class, that Confucianism maintains. He is also pragmatic, interested in the practical arts, engineering, fortification, military technology. The Mahists develop theories of logic and science that are remarkable for their time. Xuanzi, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, Bing Fa, written during the Warring States period, or possibly the Spring and Autumn period. The authorship and dating are debated, but the text is real, and it is one of the most widely read military treatises in history, still assigned in military academies, still discussed in business schools, still quoted in negotiations and strategy discussions. Around the world, The Art of War is brief, 13 short chapters, but its ideas are dense. All warfare is based on deception. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Know yourself and know your enemy, and in 100 battles you will never be defeated. These ideas, about strategy, about the importance of intelligence, about winning without unnecessary conflict, are as applicable to many human situations as to war itself. The Warring States period, 481 to 221 before the Common Era. 7 major states, contending for supremacy, Qi, Yan, Zhou, Wei, Han, Chu, and Qin. The states develop large armies, new weapons. Iron replaces bronze for weapons and tools. Iron is harder, more widely available, more practical for mass production of military equipment. Crossbows become important, more powerful than traditional bows, and usable by soldiers with less training. Cavalry develops, mounted warfare supplementing the chariot. The states also develop administrative systems, bureaucracies, to manage their growing territories, to tax their populations, to organize labor for construction and agriculture. The competing states are laboratories of governance, experimenting with different systems, different legal codes, different ways of organizing a state. Legalism, a philosophy of governance, that becomes associated particularly with the state of Qin. Legalists believe that people respond to reward and punishment, not to moral example. Clear and strictly enforced laws, applied equally to all, without regard to rank or relationship, are the foundation of a strong state. The legalists are pragmatic, ruthless in their logic. They produce effective administrators and effective states. The state of Qin, in the northwest, with its back against the mountains, adopts legalist principles. Under the reforms of Shang in the 4th century, it reorganizes its army, its administration, its agriculture. It becomes the most efficiently organized military state in the Warring States period. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin, born in 259 before the Common Era. He becomes king of Qin in 247. At the age of 13, he is determined, methodical, ruthless. He pursues the unification of China with total commitment. State by state, the other 6 major powers fall. Han in 230, Zhou in 228, Wei in 225, Chu in 223, Yan in 222, Qi in 221. In the same year, 221 before the Common Era, Qin Shi Huang proclaims himself the first emperor. Shi Huangdi, the first ruler to use this title, which had previously been reserved for the mythological god-kings of the distant past. The unification of China, 221 before the Common Era, is one of the pivotal moments in world history. For the first time, the territories that will become the core of Chinese civilization are under a single ruler, under a single administrative system. Qin Shi Huang moves quickly to consolidate. He standardizes weights and measures, so that a bushel in one part of the empire is the same as a bushel in another. He standardizes coinage, a single currency across the empire. He standardizes the written script. Different regions of China had developed different forms of the characters. He imposes a single standard form. This written standard means that educated people across the empire can communicate in writing, even if their spoken dialects are mutually incomprehensible. The written language as a unifying force. He standardizes axle widths, so that carts traveling on roads leave ruts of the same width, and carts from different parts of the empire can use the same roads, without their wheels falling into wrong-sized ruts. A small but practical detail of a centralizing state. He builds roads, a network of roads, connecting the empire, called Qidao, imperial roads, wide, straight, built with a central lane reserved for the emperor, flanked by lanes for general traffic. Trees planted along the sides, for shade. He connects the walls. Various states in the north had built walls. to protect their territories from the nomadic peoples of the steppe. The Xiongnu. Qin Shi Huang connects and extends these walls into what becomes the basis of what we call the Great Wall of China. Though the wall as we know it, the impressive stone structure with its towers and battlements, is largely a product of the later Ming dynasty. Over 1,000 years in the future, the Qin wall is earthen, tamped earth, reinforced with reeds, less imposing, but impressive in scale, and enormously costly in labor. Hundreds of thousands of workers build the wall. Soldiers, convicted criminals, conscripted peasants. The work is brutal, the conditions harsh. Many die, and are buried in or near the wall. The mausoleum. Qin Shi Huang begins building his tomb, almost immediately upon becoming emperor. A massive project, lasting decades, involving hundreds of thousands of workers. The tomb itself is a burial mound, beneath a hill, near the ancient capital of Xianying, modern Xi'an. It has not been excavated. The Chinese government has decided to preserve it, to wait for technology capable of excavating it properly, without damaging what is inside. Ancient texts describe a vast underground palace, with rivers of mercury flowing through channels, to represent the rivers of the empire. Astronomical charts on the ceiling, the treasures of the realm, all sealed inside. Modern surveys have detected elevated mercury levels in the soil above the tomb, consistent with the ancient descriptions. What has been found is outside the burial mound. The Terracotta Army, discovered in 1974 by farmers digging a well, a vast array of life-sized terracotta soldiers, buried in pits to the east of the main mound, to guard the emperor in the afterlife. The warriors are extraordinary, each one individual, each face different, different hairstyles, different facial features, different expressions. They were originally painted in vivid colors. The paint has faded over 2,000 years, but traces remain: red, green, blue, black. 3 major pits have been excavated, containing perhaps 8,000 soldiers, plus horses, and chariots, and weapons. The weapons are real: bronze swords, crossbow mechanisms, spearheads, still sharp after 2,000 years, coated with a layer of chromium, a metal that was not rediscovered for use in manufacturing until the 20th century. The ancient Qin craftsmen used a technique that preserved the bronze against corrosion, that modern metallurgists found surprising. When they analyzed the weapons, Qin Shi Huang, the man who unified China, who standardized weights and measures and writing, who built the Great Wall and the imperial roads, is also known for actions that history records with less admiration. He burns books. In 213 before the Common Era, he orders the burning of books he considers subversive. History books from the other states, which might inspire regional loyalties. Philosophy books, particularly Confucian texts, which criticize the legalist principles of his state. Poetry. Only practical books are spared. On agriculture, medicine, divination, he buries scholars. According to later accounts, he orders the burial alive of perhaps 460 scholars for criticizing him or for practicing the forbidden philosophies. These acts, the burning of books and the burial of scholars, are remembered for millennia as the great crimes of the first emperor. He is also obsessed with immortality. He sends expeditions to find the elixir of immortality to the Eastern Sea, where islands are said to exist, where the immortals live. The expeditions return with nothing, or do not return at all. He takes mercury pills, prescribed by his alchemists, believed to prolong life. They probably shorten it. Mercury is poisonous. He dies in 210 before the Common Era. While on a tour of the empire, he is 50 years old. His death is concealed by his chief minister, for fear of what will happen. The body is carried back to the capital, in a sealed carriage, with a cart of rotting fish traveling alongside, to mask the smell. The Qin dynasty outlasts him by only 4 years, 221 to 206 before the Common Era. 15 years in total. The harshness of Qin rule, the heavy labor demands, the strict legalist laws, create resentment. Rebellions break out. Almost immediately after Qin Shi Huang dies, the Han dynasty rises from the chaos that follows the collapse of Qin. The founder, Liu Bang, a man of humble origins, a minor village official, who rises to lead one of the rebel factions. He defeats his rivals. He establishes the Han dynasty. In 206 before the Common Era, he rules as Emperor Gaozu, the High Forefather. The Han is one of the great dynasties of Chinese history. It lasts from 206 before the Common Era to 220 of the Common Era, over 400 years, with a brief interruption, when a reformer named Wang Mang seizes power. From 9 to 23 of the Common Era, the Han before Wang Mang is called the Western Han. The Han after is the Eastern Han. The Han Chinese, the name for the majority ethnic group of China today. Han Chinese comes from this dynasty. The word Han, as a cultural and ethnic identifier, derives from these 400 years, when a Chinese identity, a sense of shared culture and history, consolidated around the institutions and traditions of the Han dynasty. Emperor Wu, Han Wudi, the martial emperor, who rules from 141 to 87 before the Common Era, over 50 years, one of the great reigns of Chinese history. He expands the empire. He pushes north against the Xiongnu, the nomadic confederation that threatens the northern border. He pushes south, incorporating what is now Vietnam into the empire. He pushes west, into Central Asia, opening the routes that become the Silk Road. The Silk Road, not a single road, but a network of routes, connecting China to Central Asia, to the Middle East, to the Mediterranean world. Goods flow along these routes. Silk from China westward, glass and gold and silver from the west eastward. Horses, the Central Asian horses, larger and faster than Chinese breeds, are desperately wanted by the Han military, for cavalry that can match the Xiongnu. Emperor Wu sends expeditions far into Central Asia to find and buy these horses, called heavenly horses. The Silk Road carries more than goods, carries ideas. Buddhism enters China along these routes, from India through Central Asia, arriving in China roughly during the Han period. It will become one of the defining elements of Chinese culture. Alongside Confucianism and Taoism, the three teachings, Sanjiao, that shape Chinese civilization for the next 2,000 years. The imperial examination system, Han Wudi, establishes an academy, the Taixue, to train officials in Confucian classics. This is the beginning of the examination system that will eventually become the most distinctive feature of Chinese governance, a system for selecting government officials based on competitive examination. In the Confucian classics, open, in theory, to any man who can demonstrate mastery of the texts, regardless of birth. The examination system is not fully developed in the Han. It reaches its mature form under later dynasties, the Tang and the Song, but its roots are here, in the Han decision to recruit officials, based on learning, rather than solely on aristocratic birth. Sima Qian, the grand historian, one of the greatest historians in the ancient world. He works in the Han imperial court, in the late 2nd century before the Common Era. He writes the Shiji, the records of the grand historian, a comprehensive history of China, from the mythological beginnings, down to his own time, 130 chapters, covering everything, the early dynasties, the biographies of important figures, economic history, cultural history, the history of the various peoples of the known world. Sima Qian suffers for his writing. He defends a general who has surrendered to the Xiongnu against the emperor's displeasure. He is punished with castration, terrible punishment, in a Confucian world where the body is a gift from one's parents and must be kept whole. He can choose death instead. He chooses to live, to finish his history. He considers the work more important than his pride or his pain. The Shiji is finished, survives. It is one of the great works of Chinese literature and of world historiography. Daily life in Han China. The vast majority of the population are farmers, living in villages, growing rice in the south, millet and wheat in the north. They pay taxes, in grain, in cloth, in labor service. They are liable for military service. They build the walls and the canals and the roads that the empire requires. A farmer's day begins at dawn. He tends to his animals, pigs, chickens, perhaps an ox. He works in the fields, planting, weeding, harvesting. He uses iron tools, a plow, a hoe, a sickle. The iron technology of the late Zhou and Qin periods has made farming more efficient, more productive, capable of feeding a larger population. The family is the basic unit of society. 3 or 4 generations may live together. Grandparents, parents, children, sometimes an uncle's family under the same roof, or in adjacent rooms. The family worships together at the household shrine, offering food and incense to the ancestors. The ancestors are believed to continue to exist and to require the care of their descendants. In return for their protection, the markets in Han cities are lively places. Merchants sell food, cloth, pottery, bronze vessels, iron tools, lacquerware, silk. The government regulates the markets, sets the hours of operation, collects taxes on transactions. Merchants are officially low in the social hierarchy, below scholars and farmers and artisans. But in practice, wealthy merchants have considerable influence. Lacquerware, one of the great arts of Han China. Objects made of wood or fabric, coated with multiple layers of lacquer. The sap of the lacquer tree, dried and built up, layer after layer. Each layer dried before the next is applied. The process takes weeks or months. For fine pieces, the finished object is light, strong, water-resistant, and can be polished to a brilliant sheen, can be painted, decorated with intricate designs. In red and black, the dominant colors of Han lacquer. Han lacquerware has been found in tombs, preserved by the conditions of burial. bowls and cups and boxes and trays, still brilliant after 2,000 years. The painted designs still clear, swirling cloud patterns, hunting scenes, figures in flowing robes, a window into the visual world of the Han. The paper, one of China's great contributions to the world, is invented during the Han dynasty. The traditional account credits Kai Luan, a court official, in 105 of the Common Era. He reports to the emperor that he has made paper from a mixture of bark, hemp, rags, and fishnets, pulped together and spread on a screen and dried. Paper is lighter than silk, cheaper than silk, more convenient than bamboo strips, which had been the primary writing material before. Paper spreads slowly at first, but by the end of the Han dynasty, it is in widespread use, and it will eventually spread along the Silk Road to the Islamic world, to Europe, transforming the way knowledge is recorded and transmitted. Everywhere it reaches, the fall of the Han. The Han dynasty weakens in the late 2nd century of the Common Era. A combination of factors: court intrigues, the power of eunuchs at court, natural disasters, peasant uprisings, regional warlords, the Yellow Turban Rebellion. In 184, a massive peasant uprising, led by a religious movement, takes the Han years to suppress. The dynasty fragments into the Three Kingdoms period, 220 to 280 of the Common Era. Three rival states, Wei in the north, Shu Han in the southwest, Wu in the southeast, each claiming legitimacy, each fighting the others. Period of division. That is also one of the most romanticized periods in Chinese history. The Three Kingdoms are the subject of one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a text still widely read and adapted in China and across East Asia. To this day, what ancient China leaves behind is difficult to summarize because it is so vast. The written language, Chinese characters, derived from the oracle bone script of the Shang, developed and refined over 3,000 years, still in use today, by over 1 billion people, in a form recognizably connected to its ancient origins. Confucianism, the system of ethics and social thought that shapes Chinese governance and family life, and spreads to Korea and Japan and Vietnam, and beyond, still shaping how people think about relationships, about obligation, about education, the examination system that produces the most meritocratic civil service of the pre-modern world, that gives China its administrative continuity across dynasties and centuries, the technologies, paper, printing, which comes later, in the Tang and Song, gunpowder, the compass, for inventions, that Francis Bacon identifies in the 17th century as the things that changed the world, more than any empire or religion or philosopher. All Chinese, the Silk Road, that carries Chinese goods and ideas westward, and brings the goods and ideas of the wider world into China, making China part of a world system, connected, influencing and influenced. The Great Wall, extended and rebuilt over dynasties, still running across the mountains of northern China, still visited by millions of people who walk along its battlements and look north into the steppe and south into the green hills and farmland that the wall was built to protect, and the Terracotta Army, still in the earth near Xi'an, excavated slowly, carefully, by archaeologists who bring each figure to light after 2,000 years of darkness and silence, each one individual, each one made with care, by a craftsman whose name is not known, but whose work remains. We slow down now. The narration settles toward its close. It is an evening in the Yellow River Valley. Many centuries ago, the light is fading. Over the Lus Hills to the west, orange and gold, the river catching the last of it, moving eastward, carrying its yellow silt, as it has always carried it. In a village by the river, the day is ending. A farmer walks back from his fields, his hoe over his shoulder, his feet dusty from the dry soil. Smoke rises from the kitchen fires, the smell of millet porridge. A dog barks somewhere. A child runs between the houses. The family gathers around the hearth. The oldest member says something. The others listen. A story, perhaps, or a memory, or simply the names of the ancestors, spoken aloud, so they are not forgotten. Outside, the stars appear over the great plain, the same stars that Shang astronomers recorded on their oracle bones, that Han scholars named and mapped, that travelers on the Silk Road navigated by. Still there, still burning, looking down on the river and the valley and the long history of the civilization below. If tonight's journey through ancient China helped you rest and learn, a like and a subscribe helps more people find this channel. New history narrations are uploaded regularly. Sleep well, and thank you for listening.